And we can welcome everybody joining today in this session, and especially I want to welcome the panelists that are with us today. This is a Black Swan series from Jellify. It's an initiative that we launched 2 months ago in order to create some traction on the topic of COVID-19 and the lesson learned.
So we are here today with this fantastic panel of guests.
I really would like to have from Carlos ahead, each one of you to introduce yourself.
I'm Carlos Magán. I work in more than 30 years in the food industry in Latin America, in Kraft Foods first, then Ferrero for Latin America, and lately in Danone.
Flavio?
Well, hi, everybody. Thank you, Massimo. I'm Flavio Canilla. I'm a journalist, and I'm a member of the advisory group of eBoard, which is the senior entrepreneurial ecosystem which co-hosts this session. So thank you very much, Jellify, for giving us the opportunity. And I'm going to be your moderator, and I'm looking very, very forward to introduce afterwards and to speak to our panelists, who I think share quite a unique skills of a unique set of skills which are very useful for our current situation.
Thank you, Flavio. We have Sergio.
Good morning. My name is Sergio Prendone. I'm the current CEO of eBoard. Thank you, Massimo, for this invitation for us. And in the past, I was responsible for HR in different multinational companies, Kraft Foods, SC Johnson. I was working and living in Argentina, in Central America and US. Thank you.
Tagrid, welcome. It's a pleasure to meet you in this forum.
Thank you. Just to introduce myself, my name is Tagrid Saeed. I'm SVP of Media Intelligence and Innovation at Mubadala, which is the investment arm of Abu Dhabi government. I'm also the co-founder of 8 Creative Technology to support the community. I have more than 20 years of experience in marketing, communication, and digital transformation, and I'm happy to be here today. Thank you.
Great to be here. Thank you very much. And we have Pablo.
Yes, Massimo, thank you very much. Pleasure to be with you. Thank you for the invitation. I am the president and general manager for Ingredient. It's an American company operating in Latin America. Previously, I worked for the Coca-Cola company and for General Mills in consumer markets. And I will be very happy to share with you this meeting today.
That's great. I think we had Diego also, but I don't see now in the panel, but he will be part of our team for sure today. And let me go ahead now, and especially I want to spend a couple of minutes to explain what Jellify is, because actually we are a new concept that deserves some explanation, I think. Jellify World is a community for innovation that we manage in a very peculiar way. We provide startups with investments and capabilities, exactly like an incubator does. We provide organizations with consulting, advisory, and also digital transformation services, exactly like a consultant would do. And we help investors to find the right startups, tech startups to invest on. Our focus is on B2B tech startups. And we want to build an ecosystem that is augmenting the ability to create value from different angles. In the bottom part of the slide, you can find links where you can find more information. I want to spend more time on this now, but it was important to have this introduction. Going ahead in the presentation, we introduced our initiative. As I said before, we wanted to launch this initiative. There is a series of 10 webinars, one per week, where we want to attack different angles, from different angles, the point and the complexities and the challenges that we have found in the last period. So today we have the session number 6, that is a peculiar one. It's not a presentation. In the past, we had some presentations with slides and so on, but today we want to, since we have this fantastic panel of C-level participants, we want to more have Flavio running this interview and running this roundtable for us. And I welcome everybody that just joined recently, and I thank you for being here today.
Oh, thank you, Massimo. So I'll take over from you. Excellent again to be here. And let me set the table, you may say. And remember what we are doing today. We are talking almost in a global kind of set. Tahrid Al Said is in Abu Dhabi. Carlos Magan and Pablo Pla are in Argentina, where it's 7 o'clock in the morning. And Sergio Pendone is in Barcelona. Massimo, I suppose he is in Italy. Amanda is in Italy. And I'm in Madrid.
No, actually, I'm in Dubai.
Well, there you are, in Dubai. So what I want to stress with this is that we are really experiencing a new time not only of communications, but also of collaboration and of thinking, rethinking ourselves. And this panel we have today with us, as I said before, kind of shares a very unique kind of quality. All of them, the 4 of them, have hands-on experience, not only in the art of redefining a business when disaster struck. They not did it just once, they did it quite a few times. And that is the skill we asked them to share with us in order to give us an idea of how we can move forward in a moment when everyone, I think, will agree with me, uncertainty is the only real thing we know for sure. So let me walk you just quite a moment through how we're going to do this this conversation. We have structured it in 3 parts. In the first part, we're going to enter into a one-on-one kind of discussion on very specific items, or very specific topics of business and economy and companies. In the second part, we're going to enter in a more open dynamic in terms of really trying to do this virtual roundtable. And the third part is where you, dearest audience, come in, and with your questions, and you can present the questions to our panelists through the Q&A channel, the Q&A window you see at the bottom of the screen. Please, my suggestion, do only use this window, because otherwise we're going to get a bit lost maybe. So just the questions for the panelists through the Q&A window. Having said that, let's start, as I said. And I would like to start with Tahrid. Tahrid brings to us a beautiful journey, I must say. When I saw her profile, I realized that I thought she is already there where almost every one of us, or all of us who are trying to understand this current situation, would want to be. What do I mean with that? Tahrid is an entrepreneur. She created 8 creative technology, an innovation hub, and today she is part of Abu Dhabi's investment fund, Mubadala, as a senior vice president for media intelligence and innovation. So she completed that journey. She reinvented herself not once, but a few times. And what I wanted to ask you, Tahrid, if you could share with us, in this transforming not only your own business model, but in transforming different kind of business models and bringing them into a new set of stage, which is the public sector. Which are the stepstones you know that are repeating themselves whenever a crisis come up?
Well, I consider myself lucky that I can see both views, like the private sector and the government sector. And it's really nice to see how both actually sectors react in crisis, because I have seen different crises in the past, but maybe this is one of the, I would say, it's like mind-blowing in terms of crisis.
Absolutely.
But the best thing is actually to think over and not to react quickly, to really assess the situation. So I'm going to give actually two examples, one from the government, one from the private. So in COVID-19, before we think about digital transformation and how can we adopt quickly, is the first step is to reassess the business itself. Is there a need? Do we need to modify not even the business model in terms of operation, but actually the business, the core business? So as an example, there's a company under Mubadala Group called Strata, which focus in aviation sector and aerospace. So it manufactures some of the parts of the airplanes. Because of the current situation, they have added a line, which is a production of masks. So because of the current situation, why would we import hundreds of millions of masks and there's an opportunity to actually produce it locally? So this is even good for the economy of the country. So having this entrepreneurial mindset in a government entity is something that you really need in a current situation. When you go again and we assess the private sector, or let's say the consumer space, we focus on the need. Now, in the current situation, people will take out all the junk, let's say, and focus on the need. For example, healthcare products and services, education, food delivery, all the core things where you need to focus. So that's why you see some companies, like even the pharmaceutical industry, because there is a spike in wellness and healthcare. So now people are actually creating their own, let's say, mini gym facility at home. So you see other sectors, like in pharmaceutical, if you go, they have activated their e-commerce to support and filling this need, which is a spike. It was, if we speak months ago, no one would think of having their, let's say, own gym at home or having these services at home. So this is, let's say, the first step of digital transformation is to assess the core business. After the core business is actually the digital transformation. I mean, if someone, let's say, if there's a training center and they insist to run their courses, let's say, traditional way, they will go out of business. So they will need to adjust and go online. Going online is not just a turn of a key where you just activate a platform and boom, you're offering your courses online. It's a whole shift in model where you need to assess, do your employees have the right skills? The whole process, how you communicate with the customers, how do you structure the programs in a way? So
let's leave it there with the need and the transformation. We're coming back to that in a moment. I would like to pass now another question to Carlos. Carlos, in the crisis you experienced, and you experienced quite a few, you told me one of the strongest was the 2014 in Brazil, and you had to kind of rethink, redesign a complete business management, a complete business model. If you could share with us what kind of lessons you learned in that journey in terms of financials and planning, maybe.
Well, thank you, Flavio. Yes, in Latin America we are used to crises. Brazil, I lived one in Brazil that was normally triggered by drastic currency devaluations. But although every crisis is different, I've seen some common characteristics across them, and which I also can see in this global crisis of COVID. One clear is there are significant and drastic change in consumer needs, as we are seeing now in this crisis, together with less consumer purchasing power, and therefore there is an increase in price sensitivity because every crisis makes people fear about the future, which is also within a context of higher costs. Currency devaluations or fixed cost absorption are putting the margins of the company under pressure. Another characteristic is there are important shifts among sales channels, as we are seeing as well here with the e-commerce channel or with retailers with delivery capabilities. In terms of managing the customers, also there is an increasing risk of bad debts and bankruptcy processes, particularly in the retail sector, but also several regulatory changes. Now, governments try implement some extraordinary measures to assist companies, but also to help the general population that impact the way you do business. And some of these will become permanent, not only during the crisis. No? So
Right.
all these changes, the first is generates a massive consequences to the business in the short term, but also in the midterm, because the world will be different in the future.
Now, if I can sum it up, if I wrote it down properly, you spoke of acceleration of consumer needs, as well. Tahid said the same, changes in the needs of people, changes on the demand side. You said a less consuming purchasing power as we are seeing it today. That tends to a drastic, change in the sales channels, as well a kind of a consolidation in the area of retailers. Now, how do you move forward? What kind of roadmap have you, from your experience, to address those changes?
Yeah,
from a planning perspective.
The massive number of changes, it's advisable, I would say, to establish two different teams. Now, one is to manage the short term, which is basically the business continuity. There are a lot of impacts for the business, particularly for the CPG companies like food industry that produce essential products. The most important thing is to assure that you continue supplying to meet the demand. It's very important to keep that while guarding the safety of employees and the stakeholders across all the supply chain. No? So normally this thing is operations, sales, the supply chain head, but also IT and HR, because they need to review the footprint, the assets, and the processes of the company to be able to assure the business continuity. And a second thing that will be looking at the same crisis and the development of the crisis, but with a different perspective, to identify what are the impact for the business, for the whole business model and the strategy for the future, and make the adaptations to be able to be competitive after the crisis.
And you gave me the perfect keyword to switch over to Pablo. Pablo Pla, as you heard, is not only today's president and general manager of Ingredient. He is or was also a first responder in the disaster service of the American Red Cross in New York. And from there, he brings quite a unique kind of other skills, you may say, in what we can call a fast triage method analysis, you can even think. So Paulo, if we take over from Carlos and we think we are now in survival mode, if you might say, as Tahid as well said, we have to focus on the needs, we have to focus on the changes we see on our demand side. But how can we do that and focus also on the growth, which we have also to go on with?
Yes, Flavio. As you know, the triage method, just for your reference, it's a process of determining the priority of patients in an emergency of crisis. That's used in the medical and in the military as well. Yeah. But in business, going down to earth, it means prioritizing. In any crisis, there is a lot of confusion. There is uncertainties. There is a lot of noise. So I think taking the current crisis, but I can find the same thing in different turnarounds that I have to manage all over the years in Latin America. I think that there are immediately four main priorities. I would call it the 4 C's. The first one is cash. I mean, if we don't make early decisions regarding cash, in most crises, we may not even see the following phase of the process. Okay. So, just to give you an idea, in the current crisis, for example, we made very early decisions. It's very, very important to make early decisions regarding credit, regarding credit limits, how we manage customers, etc., etc. Cash is king, really. The second C is costs. Usually, especially during prolonged crisis, to launch a cost optimization program is very important. Sometimes, for example, in my company, I push for a reduction of capex during the following year. There are many things nice to do, but you have to be very careful during the crisis. The third C is customers. Among all this confusion, it's very important to be close to the customers, even in situations where the markets are shrinking and demand is not there. If you are closer to the customer, you may gain, and it's very important to keep that energy from the sales force and the marketing areas, of course, depending on the industry. And the last one, which for me is the most important C, between cash, cost, customers, is closeness to people. Okay. This is essential. In a crisis, there is a lot of distractions. Distraction, by the way, is the opposite to traction. Traction is everybody going in the same direction. Distraction is just the opposite. So we need to be close. Leadership is essential, and we need to be very close, present. Leadership is presence. You never heard about a good leader which was absent or hidden. This is very essential, and it can be done in a very practical way by establishing, during the crisis committees, regular meetings, etc. So I will stop there.
Excellent, Pablo. Thank you very much. And we can jump into the next exposition from Sergio, because Sergio will take over from you, Pablo, in terms of Sergio is or was today, he is the CEO of B-Board and founder of B-Board, but in his former life, he was, as he said, director and responsible for the whole Latin American human resources department of such players as Kraft Foods or SSC Johnson. And in that tenure, Sergio, you had, well, I don't know if you can say the privilege or whatever you might tell it, to live through the Argentinian crisis of 2001, to kind of set the table there for our audience. The crisis in Argentina in 2001 was a complete default of the economy. I suppose lots of you will remember Argentina was credited by the Times the worst default in human history. And to lead human resources department through that time must be quite a challenge. So Sergio, tell us what lessons do you bring into this global pandemic in terms of talent management? As Pablo said before, how do you navigate the tension, the uncertainty that all the situation generates in our workforce and is generating today? What do you do? What you shouldn't do?
Yes, please. Thank you, Flavio. Let me give a really brief introduction in relation with the situation at that moment in 2001 in Argentina. Imagine a country that changed the country president 6 times in 10 days, that everyone collapsed. The bank says that you could not have the possibility to take your money, that the bank tried to block this. The government decided not to give money and make many decisions, as Carlos mentioned, to every company and every organization, and was a total crisis that nobody knows what is the right decision to make. In this context, what I did, immediately I asked my team to have a meeting, and I make the decision to do 3 things. 1, ask. 2, ask for a recommendation, and 3rd, a communication. When I said ask, I said, guys, you should go to talk with everyone, try to understand which is the main concern that they have. Because when you have this kind of crisis, the uncertain, as you mentioned, Flavio, is very hard to manage. So everyone have different concerns. 1, in relation with the economy. 2nd, in relation with the family. 3rd, in relation with the social impact. Then you have also the political uncertainty. So you don't know who is the person that you need to trust. So it's very important, from my point of view, try to define something that is not going to match with your current plans within your organization. So you need to define which are the new leaders. When I said new leaders, probably will not be the formal leaders. The new leaders are that people that demonstrate that have the correct behavior during a crisis. So you need to identify these new leaders, because probably are not the formal leaders, are not the formal bosses, but are the people that are going to help you to understand which are the right decisions to make.
Let me ask you one thing. What do you mean when you say the correct attitude during the crisis? What would be a correct attitude?
I make three main things. At that moment, I was responsible for HR for 5,000 people, main of all in Argentina.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked my team to do three things. One, as I mentioned, to go to talk with everyone and try to understand which are the three main concerns that they have.
Okay.
Then they come in the afternoon. The same day I say, guys, you need to come this afternoon with these conclusions. Then in the same day I said, I need your recommendation. Which are the recommendations that you want to do with these main concerns that you assess? In terms of this, I see which was the attitude versus the aptitude. So behaviors that everyone take in this kind of situation, for me, is extremely important. So I understand which are the natural leaders that are proactive, that wants to make things, that wants to control the situation, and others probably were the formal leaders that was more passive, that was more different behaviors that we are not expecting.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Sergio.
Okay.
And now to get back to you, and we talked about needs, we talked about information, we're going to talk more about that. And we talked about leadership in the beginning, because leadership is going to be one of our great topics in the second part of our conversation. But we're now going to talk about another very important, and I would say a kind of key issue, key channel in this very specific situation where everything is uncertain, volatile, and complex. And this is communication marketing. Communication marketing, as you yourself stressed it, is one of your areas of expertise. It's an area you studied quite a bit. And more than that, communication marketing are also two areas which were already transforming themselves before the pandemic. Maybe there were two areas that suffered the biggest transformation before COVID-19. But most importantly, today, they're also the channels through which all the communications goes through to our internal clients and to our external clients. So from your experience in other crises, which are the lessons we can take advantage of today? Which are the common situations that will come up and we as business leaders, as entrepreneurs, should be very much aware of in order to not to get into the same mistakes as a few years ago?
One key learning out of this is actually there's two key words, which is safety and empathy. Right. So any companies, before they talk about profitability and to assure investors that or stakeholders that everything is in control in terms of cost, in terms of cash and all that, but employee safety comes first. And we should be also genuine about it. It's not just communication. Right. Communication now have more pressure to show evidence that when we say we do care about employee safety, that we are following best standard, we're taking action. Now we have more pressure also from the public that we need to show clear evidence using videos, interviewing employees, that they need to listen and see to the and find the real picture out of this. Another thing is empathy. I mean, again, before talking about cost, cash, how the business is doing, empathize with the customers or the consumers and users, that we do feel your pain. We understand the current situation. So before talking about so even communication, this becomes like an intro before you speak to about any other topic. Right. Good thing that, so like, for example, Mubadala in particular, they have announced, for example, the government stimulus to reduce rent for retailers and other companies. This also put pressure on other investors and other developers to reduce the prices and to empathize with the consumers and business owners, actually. So this is another thing. There was other services that there was a lot of debate whether to activate or not, like pharmaceutical delivery. The medicine delivery was a big no-no, let's say. But because of the current situation now, all new laws impose that it's okay, but with also following certain safety and regularity guidelines to start delivering medicines to school and to homes, but also activate the telemedicine is in spike as well. One thing that is becoming so critical in communication is media intelligence and using artificial intelligence in this infrastructure, which means that the traditional way of communication, where we just have a press release and just send it to media and impose what the company want to say to the public, is no longer the way to communicate. We actually do it the other way. We listen to the public. When I say public, means even the business community and the public community. Then we start putting a communication plan, and we create content based on what the businesses and the customers and general public want to listen to.
Right.
So this also helps us to tailor the content and also tailor the channel based on what people are actually, based on actually media consumption.
Right.
So again, this is also in the rise. We can't predict what, or just feed the market and the media outlets of things that we want people to listen, because now people are challenging us, and they are more, would say, they're more open to or have more pressure to listen to the truth and be more transparent as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Tahrid. And I would like to switch now to Carlos Magan back, just very briefly, because we are now starting to, well, think a bit about the time. You said short-term versus mid-term, Carlos. Could you give us three or four keywords in where and how to navigate that journey from the short-term, or to navigate in between short-term and mid-term?
Well, yes, as I said, the first priority is to assure the business continuity, but it's important to make decisions carefully, no? And these decisions need to be well communicated. As Tahrid said, during a crisis, consumers, but also the media and even the government become more sensitive and less tolerant to inconsistencies. So you need to be very careful with the decisions you take to keep the business continuity. And you need to bear in mind that you can strengthen or damage your reputation in a very short period of time, depending on the decisions you are taking during this. So even the first thing that is taking emergency decisions needs to bear this in mind. One aspect I mentioned was the price sensitivity. You know, when you have high currency devaluations, or high volatility, the margins are under pressure. Every company tries to increase prices and reduce payment terms at the same time. We have a situation in Brazil and in Argentina as well. No, the valuation from 1 to 4, from one day to the other. So these are really changing all the numbers of a company. And it's advisable that, as also Pablo said, that you focus on the cash flow rather than the P&L. No, cash is key during the crisis to survive. So what we did at that time is before increasing the price list was to reduce the payment terms, because if you increase the prices, but you need to guess what is going to be your cost or the exchange rate the day you collect invoices, that normally is 90 days after selling or 100 days after selling, is impossible. So we decided first to reduce payment terms without increasing the price list, and this was also much easier to negotiate with the retailers at the time that everybody wanted both things, no, increase prices and reduce payment terms. Also, another aspect for the team that is managing the short term is to review the product portfolio, to do prioritization. Normally focus on the products with more relevant, normally in terms of sizes or packagings, But this prioritization list could also provide the operations team with priorities in case of supply issues. And also if they identify gaps between the portfolio and the new consumer needs, this should be included in the innovation pipeline for the future as well. No? So this is in the short term, but another thing that we'll be looking at the development of the crisis with the perspective of identifying what needs to be adjusted in the strategies and the business model is also very important to start as soon as possible, because the organization needs to continue focusing part of its energy in improving its competitive position. So a crisis is a unique opportunity to improve your competitive position as well. So it starts, the second thing normally made by the marketing head, the strategy head, R&D, consumer and market research. They need to look at what are the insights and what are the implications for the company. For everything, start by identifying the key changes relevant for the company.
Excellent. So let me now turn over to the second part of our conversation, which would be maybe a more dynamic kind of talk. And I would focus first of all on what I anticipated before, the leadership issue. And for that we have, as we saw, two excellent experts like Pablo Pla and Sergio Prendonné. But please, Tajrid and Carlos, do not restrain yourself from jumping into the conversation as well. So Pablo and Sergio, what I would like to interiorize myself a bit more, maybe. We talked about what you could do in terms of short-term actions. But in times like this, where everything is uncertain, as I said, volatile, complex, ambiguous, the famous VUCA kind of synonym, how can a leader, we as leaders, we as businessmen and women, we as entrepreneurs, one kind of learn where to focus ourselves? How can we orientate ourselves in this scenario? Pablo, maybe you first.
Okay, I was going to tell Sergio to start, but okay, I will go. I think there is a very important thing in all the crises I have been involved in, both in business and in the Red Cross, for example, which has to do with realism. I think that it's very important to strike a balance between hope for the future and the realism of what the situation is. Let me give you an example of today. Today we have worldwide we are managing a big crisis called COVID-19, right? You know, we have the hope for a rapid recovery of the economy, but we don't have a clarity. And the main issue with this type of situations in big crises that alter the environment to an extent that you cannot really anticipate it is you have to work with alternatives. So you need to develop. For example, we are developing. Using the tool of scenario management and chart different alternatives that could happen. If we just plan for a rapid recovery and then we have a prolonged recession, 1 year recession, we could be in a big trouble vis-a-vis a situation in which we prepare for that alternative as well. So when you have such a level of uncertainty, we need to use a scenario management for the first 6 to 18 months after we control the initial survival requirement. Okay. I will stop there and allow Sergio to continue. Okay.
Sergio?
In my point of view, a couple of things that for me are extremely important. As Carlos mentioned, I think that the decisions that you made during the crisis are going to define how the customers and consumers are going to see you after the crisis. So I think that you need to make an inventory to try to understand which are the resources that you have. I'm talking in relation with the people, not in relation with access. Because in terms of this, you need to identify which are the new leaders that are going to help you to move forward across the crisis and for the new reality. In terms of this, I think that you need to communicate. The minimum communication that you send to the organization are going to be extremely key. One communication that we did during the crisis, we said for all the employees, we are here to stay. This simple communication was really powerful for everyone, because when you have uncertain, the main concern that you have is the future. And if you only share this kind of communication that this company is here to stay for the future, this is going to be a context for everyone to say, okay, this is one main concern that is not a minimum concern, it's a huge concern.
Excellent. And let me ask you one thing. Pablo, you said, well, I know you're quite an expert in terms of culture and strategy. Now, you know, and we all know this famous Peter Drucker quote, which says, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." I would like to change it to "Crisis eats strategy for breakfast." How much can you work with strategy in this kind of scenario, and how much should you or shouldn't you?
Okay, my point of view is that you know, both have to work together in practice. I mean, regardless of what some academics can say or write to sell a book or whatever, but you know, in practice, I've never managed a crisis, or for that being a company, without considering simultaneously strategy and cultural change. Okay, they go hand in hand. It's like trying to debate if the body of an airplane is more or less than the wings, or if a fish is more or less than a river. You need to consider both. But having said that, in a big crisis, when you have a lot of uncertainty regarding strategy, your strategy may become worthless, okay, because of the change. Right. In that case, you have to experiment. You have to build a different organizational capability, which has to do with learning quickly and pivot faster than your competition. So the logic is different from classical strategy. You need to start going from trial and error. Try to think as much as you can, but complement that with fast testing. Okay, excellent. That's essential in terms of strategy. And in terms of culture is the number one priority for every CEO in the world. To establish.
How can you work culture such a long term, so a big term, in a such short-minded time like ours now, where we really, no one knows the answers to anything, and we are all kind of learning to fail fast, and to learn fast, and to grow.
Yeah. What is the question again?
I mean, how can you work such a big issue like culture in this specific moment of short-term kind of scope?
Culture by itself, in a crisis or in a normal situation, you need 3 to 5 years to produce changes. I mean, it's not overnight anyway. So the only way is to try to establish good leadership behaviors in the short term. So, for example, leaders. I mean, I will distrust any leader today that has all the answers. Right. That will be very, very unlikely. The leaders have to provide hope and direction, even if they are not fully sure and they are testing. Okay, so a coach that I had in the United States, John Maxwell, once told me, you know, leaders are dealers of hope. Leaders are dealers of hope. You need to provide hope because people are in a lot of stress, and you need to try to establish a direction. And, you know, it's a pathfinder activity. You don't have all the answers. Okay.
Excellent. Now, and you said one thing very important, I think, which brings me to our last kind of issue. Tahrid and Carlos, transformation is the big issue of all of us today. And as Paulo very well said, it's time to fail and learn, learn and fail. Very briefly, unfortunately, but very briefly, what recommendations do you have both for entering that journey of transformation in a world which, well, fortunately enough, is all on the same level. Everyone doesn't know where to go first, and they are maybe more prone to learn and to fail. Tahrid, maybe you first.
Yeah, I'm not gonna tell my opinion. More as a case study, what we have done as an entity to tackle this. Culture is, yes, extremely important and very critical, because you have thousands of employees now working from home. So whether you like it or not, you have your employees at home. So how can you come up with a plan first to empower the employees, to give them all the facilities they need to continue working from home, but also have this culture of accountability and productivity. So making sure that the employees, even if they're home, they don't take this as an advantage, but actually they're gonna be more, continue to be productive and accountable to their deliverables. And this is something we do in terms of communication. We make sure always leadership is exposed. We do have our weekly webinars internally for our employees to make sure that the leadership are very close to the rest of the organization. We do have this close webinars, and which is extremely transparent in terms of the current situation, with no sugarcoating, with nothing, stating exactly the current situation. And each leader of the platform, because we have main 4 platform. One is aerospace, and the second is healthcare and real estate, energy and utilities. So each leader will come and talk about what is the challenges each platform is facing. And all of them have challenges. Anyone who would say there's no challenges, there's something wrong about this. Absolutely. But again, at the same time, showing how we use the current crisis as an opportunities. So announcing all the new activities, a new business line, because I mentioned about a new product line, and new services have also came because of the current situation. So this is focused more on the short term, that how the company have used this situation to actually even define new investment opportunities. So you see, like, for example, Mubadala Capital announcing a new investment happening in different market, and actually explaining why they went through this because of the current situation. In energy is facing a huge issue. But again, what was the alternative because of the current situation? So it was a very balanced communication, showing the real situation, the challenge, at the same time what we are doing. So more focus on short term, because there's very because of the uncertain situation, we can't be very solid when we talk about long term. So always focus on culture, short term solution, but also have a projection if things came back to life, that this is also where we're considering the long term, and also the shift towards a more sustainable approach. So this is a real case study of how we handled the current crisis.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Carlos, the last word for you of this part of our conversation. If you would see, or if you would evaluate all the innovations which are, well, going around these days, e-commerce, fintechs, artificial intelligence, big data, automation. If you would have to choose 2, maybe, could you give us an idea which of these 2 would be for the sector from where you come from, the food and package sector?
Well, yes. As everybody was saying, crisis brings a lot of visible issues in the short term, but it's a unique moment for opportunities as well. No? So the leadership needs to be aware of that and emphasize on how to use this window of opportunity.
Right.
And big transformations is clearly one of these opportunities. No? We all hope that after a deep crisis, the world, but also the business you are in, learn and and come after the crisis stronger and better. And these transformation programs are not necessarily new ones. These, in most of the cases, were needed before the crisis, but were not implemented because the resistance, the human resistance for change is so big that it's difficult to implement. In consumer goods industry, as in all the industry, digital transformation is critical. It's something we are seeing happening for years. However, the progress in one particular area, which is the sales department, the sales digital transformation, are in most of the cases, I think, behind the wave.
Okay.
And the reason for that is probably because this is where you have high number of people, high number of salesmen, even salesmen from third parties, your distributors, that they have high resistance for change, the way they operate. So during crisis, everybody realize and become more aware that things need to be done differently. So you can use moments of this to accelerate projects or to launch projects. So in the sales digital transformation is a key one.
Thank you, Carlos. I think this is the excellent keyword to finish our open conversation now here. The moments to experience, the moments to grow. And before I give over to our excellent Jellify team, I wanted to thank Jellify for this, this opportunity to talk as B-Board, because it's this kind of conversations, encounters that we, as the senior entrepreneurial ecosystems that we are, want to foster. Thanks again. And with that, over to you. I think Amanda is going to present the Q&A. Is that right?
Yeah, I want to, before we wanted to thank you all for joining this session. I think it was a great for all of us. I hope that our audience will also found great as well. And let's go ahead with the questions.
Okay, so we have had a lot of questions. Hopefully we can get to all of them because they're wonderful questions. So I'll start with one from Martin, who asked, how will you be able to ensure the well-being of your organization and the safety of your business during a crisis like COVID-19? And I think that Flavio, maybe you can direct the question to the
maybe to Sergio. Sergio, would you like to answer to that?
Yes, and I think that I could use a code that for me is very clear, that this famous code says, when you define your principles, the rest of the decision in your life is so simple. So I think that every company have principles, but it's the chance during the crisis to make the decision if you are going to respect these principles. In terms of this, I think that you need to balance. Of course, the short-term decisions that you need to make probably have some conflict with the long-term strategy, but never you should negotiate the principles. So the short-term, you need to make decisions to survive, but you need to take in account this, because everyone is looking at you, not only the employees, the customers, the clients. So when you make a decision, everyone is looking for your decision, not in the crisis, also after the crisis as well. So if you balance this, you need to make a decision because everyone needs to know what is happening, which is going to be your decision, and how it's going to be the future for them.
Okay, thank you, Sergio. Next question.
Thank you. Okay, the next question was, which is the right trade-off between focusing on cash and the need of certain CAPEX to adapt or revert crisis situations? For example, accelerating technology transformation.
I think that would be an excellent question for Tagrit, maybe.
Okay.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure. Which is the right trade-off between focusing on cash and the need of certain CAPEX to adapt or revert the crisis situation? For example, accelerating technology transformation.
I think it depends from case to case, from business to business, from sector to sector, because the impact of COVID-19 is not equally impacted across all industries or across all sectors. So I think maybe if we can segment and assess, even benchmark, depending on which sector we're talking about. After that is actually to assess the investment, because something that I have seen when I mentor the, I would say the local community or entrepreneurs, they're reluctant to invest in technology, because yes, we spoke about digital transformation, but you can't do digital transformation without additional investment, whether in small scale or big scale businesses. So in order to make these kind of investment decision in this critical situation, it needs to be on spot. That if I invest in a certain strategy or new equipments and new technologies for digital transformation, it needs to make sure that it is the right decision when it comes to revenue stream, the commercial impact of this decision, and also balance it with the safety and well-being of the employees and customers.
Thank you, Tagreed.
Thank you. Okay, we have another, if we consider that Bill Gates and others have warned about this kind of pandemic, we know we are in a world VUCA. Do you think that this is a black swan, or is this the first black duck?
I think that will be an excellent question for Paulo. Paulo?
Okay, this is a very, very interesting question, and it will be a very nice, long debate, okay? But to make it short, it could be argued whether this is a black swan, really, because a black swan is a totally out of the blue event that could not be anticipated. And the reality is that there were some clues to anticipate this. I remember, just to give you an idea, I was reading the Economist in January, and the Economist started to speculate about this. And in February, it was very clear that this was coming. Mm-hmm. It was coming to Europe, it was coming to America, to Latin America, to the United States. And the reality is the speed of response of many of the leaders at both the public and the corporate level was extremely slow. We should ask ourselves why, and what can we do in order to improve our intelligence systems in the companies, for example, in order to anticipate. This is all, I will close with this, Flavio, but this is always a problem when the probability of an event is very low, but the impact is very high. So what should we do? Okay, and my belief is we should have some level of planning regarding those events that can have a huge impact, even though they may not be so probable. And then the other thing is organizations need to improve the way they monitor the environment and they anticipate the environment changes.
Thank you, Paul. I mean, let me jump right into it. If you see the Economist cover of 2 weeks ago, maybe they anticipated not the next black swan, but hopefully not the black crisis. They said, seize the moment, talking about how this is a very good moment to anticipate and to work on the environmental issue. Now, back to you, Amanda.
Okay, great. Very, very interesting. This question asks, for any of the speakers, have you had any experiences in which, facing past crises, you've taken, or even this crisis for that matter, where you've taken a decision which was against other people's recommendations, and in what kind of circumstances do you think that's appropriate to go against recommendations and take a risky decision?
Would you like to start, Carlos?
Yes. Normally, when you have a team, there are different opinions and different recommendations. No, it's normal. It's not that there is consensus about every decision all the time. As Sergio says, to clarify that you are making the right decision, I think you need to follow the purpose of your business, the purpose of the company or your brand. Whether this is aligned with the purpose, with the values that the company have. I think this is the most important guide to take during the crisis, because many times you are making decisions and you wonder whether you are making the right one. So it's important to have this long-term view as well. Although it's very difficult to guess how the development of the crisis is going to be, every decision, even the short-term ones, needs to be taken in the light of your long-term view. No? And regarding the fact of change, as we said, transformation is human being, I see, in an organization. We are human beings in an organization. Most of the crises are not unexpected. What was not clear is when this is going to happen. So the surprise is that it's happening now. Unfortunately, human being needs to suffer before making the changes that are necessary. No? So I think in all aspects, we are seeing that there are a lot of changes that are needed, but the resistance to make them are high. So the crisis opened the opportunity that reduce resistance to make the right things. No?
Right.
And I have a comment, Flavio, in relation with this, very short comment, is that in a regular situation, we use all the information that we have and the experience to make a decision. In this kind of situation, we don't have information and we don't have experience to manage this. So we need to use other capabilities or skills to make a decision. And probably many times the decision that we make probably could be wrong, but we need to make a decision. So we don't have a background to support our decisions. We need to take the risk and make decisions.
Tahrid, any thoughts?
Yeah, I would say even corporate organization is now adopting to more entrepreneurial mindset. So how to be agile, how to take quick decision. It's becoming a trend. So staying months just to make a decision, this is not the way forward. I mean, even large organization or government entity are acting so quick, and we need to take fast decisions and do more testing and trials. So this is becoming like a trend, whether across all sectors, across despite the sizes of the organization.
Excellent, thank you. And Pablo?
No, I agree with everything that was said. I think that resilience will come through speed, and we'll need to gain that capability more and more, as Tahrid was saying. And you know, one thing that was being practiced even way before COVID-19 is in a disruptive world where many industries were already being disrupted before COVID-19 in the previous decade. We need to open more the cultures for experiments and trial and error. So all these agile methodologies are very important in order to do that.
Excellent, thank you. Amanda, do you have any more questions, or are we supposed to wrap it up right here?
That we can take just a few more minutes because some of these might be quite interesting. Okay, so from one of the speakers at your choice, Flavio, in their opinion, what are the changes from the offer and demand side that will change forever, permanently, given the crisis situation? Good.
Tahrid, I would love to give that questions to you, because in terms of innovation and transformation, I think you are the most, well, I wouldn't say experienced, but maybe so. Would you like to answer to that?
Actually, I would say that the COVID-19 acted like an accelerator in terms of speed of change. Here, like from the Middle East, especially UAE, I have personally seen people that you would never thought that they would be more digital savvy. Now, who were extremely avoiding using any, let's say, platforms to request for service, for product. Now it became the norm. It is the new norm. So from a consumption point of view and from a business point of view, there's a huge shift. From a larger organization, it's the same. I mean, people was reluctant to change, but now it's a must. It's no longer, oh yeah, I would prefer this way of let's say applying for services. I mean, or requesting. It's becoming the new norm. So there's a huge shift
And looking into the organizations maybe, and you brought me to a personal question. What do you think? How big? Well, we know that the transformation of the workforce is going to be very big, but are we going to go back to the way we were working before? And I'm meaning with that, I mean, the remote type of working is nothing new. How do you
actually there is a huge request from business owners to go to smaller space. That
Right.
doesn't mean that they think that we will never go back to Nor, but they were questioning themselves, why would we pay that much rent and that much big space, and we are able to deliver majority of our work virtually. So maybe even if we go back to office, maybe 30% work on rotations, more flexible hours. The flexi hour was a no here. But now it's becoming, I'm like, yeah, why not? Let's focus on productivity. I mean, why would I monitor attendance? Did you come at 7? Oh, you're 5 minutes late. I think this culture will change dramatically. And employees will not be judged by the number of hours they spend in the office. They will be more judged by their deliverables. And this is something that will never go back to what we used to perform. So this is it's a long-term change, even if everything comes back to normal. So even in the retail business, now many companies are shifting to a smaller space and going and relying more virtually in activating their e-commerce platform. So why would I invest in a huge store and I can actually have a small space or small present and rely on the e-commerce platform? So there will be a huge impact, long-term impact, even after COVID-19.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, there are two questions that are similar related to leadership and delegation. During a crisis, do you think, and of course, Fabio, you say who can answer this, do you think that leadership can be delegated at a second level of the organization, or should it be controlled by the CEO? And another asks, what can be done for organizations to be more autonomous and self-empowered? Is a hierarchical approach still relevant in tomorrow's world?
Could you repeat the second one, please?
Okay, essentially they're asking, how can we make our workforce more self-empowered and autonomous, kind of going with what was said in the last question, and asking, is the hierarchy approach still valid in the world that we'll live in tomorrow, post-COVID?
I think this is a perfect question for you, and maybe Pablo afterwards a short into as well.
Yes, for my perception, it's not an alternative to delegate to the second level of the organization. It's a must. Many changes we are going to see from now on. And one is what Tawhid mentioned, that we need to work remote. We need to change the dynamic of the way that we did business in the past. And now I think that we should do this because it's impossible to concentrate in the CEO or the decision. In a regular or previous of the pandemic was impossible, but today it's going to be worse because the dynamic of this had changed. So we need to adapt to this. We need to think and to see from my point of view, that the main challenge is going to be how we are going to operate with a sales force in a remote way, how we are going to prepare our leaders not to have really close the direct reports and their teams, and how we are going to be efficient in this new reality. So it's a must for me, it's not an alternative.
Okay, Pablo?
I think I mean, this question about hierarchy, we need to open the participation more and more. What happens in this type of situations, we already said, it's not a shame to fail. We have to legitimize experimentation. But the fact, and this is based on my real life experience, is I solved many of the unknown problems through touching with the periphery of the organization. So opening up the possibilities of, for example, a salesperson to provide an idea in a meeting, not only with the director. So open it up. And in many cases, in that periphery of the organization, there are critical strategic clues that, if captured, we can start finding the way. So I definitely think that's a must, as Sergio said. But on the other hand, there is a role for leadership here, and especially during times of crisis, the leader has to have the stomach to hold people together. Okay, and that's something that has to be there, with the heart, with compassion, with clarity, with closeness to people.
Excellent. Amanda.
Okay, and this question is saying, in the current situation, do we have a better hand compared to previous pandemics using technology and human progress? Or do you feel that we're in the same situations that our ancestors previously faced? Furthermore, how can we come together as a human race beyond nationalities, borders, and cultures to beat this together?
This is a tough one to acknowledge too. I would open that for who wants to take the first lead.
I can take it.
I have a comment in relation with this, is that the main difference from my side is, or my vision is, that this is a global crisis, that everything that we know. So it's not only this crisis affect businesses or some organizations or some companies or some countries. Everyone is affected with this. So it's a totally different context.
But the question was, are we better prepared this time as in times before? Maybe Carlos, you wanted to say something on that.
Yes, I say, well, this is not the first pandemic in the world. No, there were several. This time, what is really, I think, is an accelerator, as Tariq said, of the digital transformation in the world. No? The digital tools are really a tool that will allow to manage business in a different way. That this is empower the people that is closer to the consumer, closer to the customer. So the digital tools allow you to work in a different way. Also to manage cities in a different way. No? The size of cities we have in Latin America with 10, 20 million people in one city, we are seeing that probably needs to be revised. And there are tools available today that were not used at full. I think this crisis will accelerate the transformation in that sense, and we all hope that will be to build a better world. No? In terms of the way we manage business, we are seeing now e-commerce, the retail sector will change dramatically. No? People is experiencing now new ways to buy, new ways to do things that I don't think they will go back to the prior state, even if the pandemic is over. No? So this will accelerate a lot of changes, and I think we have new tools that will be exploded to the maximum potential.
Let me wrap it up with one personal note. I think we have this pandemic has leveled the field very much. All of us are starting at the same point. Maybe if we are bigger, we are smaller, whatever, but all of us are facing something unknown. I think that more than a crisis is an opportunity in itself. So Amanda, with that, back to you. I think we have one more question.
Yes, this last question is for Sergio. It says, do you have a model in place with Jellyfy to approach this redesign of strategy due to the COVID situation?
Yes, we are working with Jellyfy. Vivo and Jellyfy try to define this final model to offer to the companies and to professionals. And this is a learning process because, of course, we don't have all the answers in relation with this situation, but we need to work very close with the companies, with the customers, with the clients, trying to understand which are the impact that each company is going to receive during the crisis and after the crisis. But the short answer is yes, we have a model to to understand this situation. It's a tailor-made model that we need to work with each companies. We are doing this with different companies today. And I think that this is going to help a lot to understand which is going to be the future for these companies and these professionals.
Okay, thank you very much. That's the last question.
Thank you all. And for that, I think Massimo, you're going to do the closure.
Yeah, of course. I want to thank everybody again. I want to just close with a sentence. I think that what we learned from this experience is very important, is that we are in an era where there is no anymore status quo. So there is no certainty about the future, about the present, because things are unpredictable at the moment. We can, of course, face this with our best in improving the.
I think it was a great experience to discuss for all of us.
Of course, it's important to understand that we need to be, as Sergio was saying, we need to be very custom made. No? We need to proceed every day looking at the next 3 steps. It's not something that we can plan with a strategic roadmap of 3 years. It's not something that can work. So we need to be very smart, and we need to be very alert, because every day we can learn something new. And this is exactly the attitude that in terms of Agilify, for example, we are applying as a methodology to our works. So I think that Black Swan or not Black Swan, I think that we have been all surprised about what happened. And probably if it was not a Black Swan, we would not be here. So I think that I want to thank again all of you. I think it was much pleasure to be with you, and Tagrid, thank you for joining. It was a bit complex to be engaged in a very fast way, but I think it was great to have all your experience here with us. And as Jellyfy, we are very happy that we could organize this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.